Today I'm going to share with you 5 tips to make your Ample Guitar VST sound realistic, and we're starting right now. Hi friends, I'm William Nollens and I'm back for another video. If you haven't done so, you can subscribe to the channel so once a week you get a new tutorial on guitar VSTs and songwriting. But how can we make an Ample Guitar VST sound more realistic? That can be a tricky thing to achieve, especially if you're not a guitarist, but that video will help you to achieve better results. Indeed, I'm going to talk about the main differences there are between a keyboard and a guitar VST. If you play your guitar VST like we would play something on piano, then sometimes it can sound a bit fake. So step by step in this video, I'm going to show you how to make your Ample Guitar VST sound realistic, even if you're a keyboardist. And well, if you watch the video until the end, you'll get something like this. Alright, so first tip on how to make your Ample Guitar VST sound more realistic is keep in mind that a virtual guitar is a replica of a real guitar. It means that the way you'd play music on a keyboard is not always applicable to a guitar VST. Example, say we want to play an E minor chord, then if we play it with a piano, it would sound just like this. And if we want to play it with a guitar, it would sound just like this. So perhaps you have noticed that when we play a basic E minor chord with a piano and a guitar, then one instrument tends to have slightly more notes than the other one. Indeed, if we play an E minor with a piano, then we go with 3 notes. And if we play an E minor with a guitar, we go with 6 notes. And that makes a huge difference. So what are the main differences between piano chords and guitar chords? Well, with a piano, a basic E minor chord will go with root note, 3rd note, and 5th note. With the guitar, the structure of the E minor is a bit different. It goes with a root note, a 5th note, an octave note, a 3rd note, a 5th note, and an octave note again. So there lies the main difference between a piano and a guitar, or between a keyboard and a guitar VST. The notes are not sorted in the same order all the time. So with the guitar, it will actually depend on the chord. Like, do not take what I just said as a general rule, okay? It doesn't go always with root note, 5th note, octave note, 3rd note, etc. It depends on the chord. For example, if you play a C major with a guitar, it goes with a root note, a 3rd note, a 5th note, and an octave note, and a 3rd note again. So kind of similar to the way we would play a C major with a piano or a keyboard. So how can you know how guitar chords are built? Well, if you're not a guitarist, I do understand that this can be a tricky thing to achieve, but I will need to dedicate an entire video to that topic because, as I said earlier, well, there are many chords on guitar and many different ways to play them, and so many different ways to sort out the notes on the chords. So I'm giving you some links in the description below so you can check them out and you'll be on your way. So how to make your Ample Guitar VST sound more realistic? Tip number 2, keep in mind that contrary to a keyboard, it is very difficult for a guitarist to pluck 2 or more strings at the very same time. When you play with a keyboard, you can basically press several notes or keys at the very same time or simultaneously. With a guitar, the hand needs to go downward or upward to play the notes, and therefore it will play the strings one after the other. That is why you should always have a slight delay between notes, especially if you want to strum them all at once. And to explain myself clear, we're going to program a song in MIDI. So for now, I'm just going to play the following. Now, as you see, I have a little arpeggio going from the start of the clip to that moment when I play an E minor. and it doesn't sound realistic because I'm plucking the strings all at once, like we do it on a piano or a keyboard. So I'm going to zoom in here and I'll make sure that we have a slight delay between each note. So we have the root note here, then the fifth note, let's have a slight delay, then the octave note, again a slight delay, then the third note, delay, then the fifth note, and finally the octave note. And now let's compare. Okay, so how to make your Ample Guitar VST sound more realistic. Tip number 3, keep in mind that a guitarist usually can't play notes that are too distant on the guitar fretboard. On keyboard, you basically have two hands and they do the same job. Like they choose the notes and they generate the sound. On guitar, well, you have two hands but two jobs. The first will choose the notes and the second one will pluck or strum the strings. What I meant is that if you are playing notes that are situated on the first position on the guitar neck, like low notes, you can't suddenly go at the end of the guitar neck and play super high notes. Okay, that doesn't sound real. Why? Because when a guitarist is playing there, it has only one hand to choose the notes. The other hand is plucking the strings. So on a piano it's okay because you can choose and generate the sound with two hands. But with a guitar, you only have one hand to choose the notes and one hand to generate the sound. So you can't play notes that are low and suddenly super high. No. Okay, so if I exemplify what I just said, but in my DAW, I'd say that when you play an arpeggio, say that one, so it doesn't sound extraordinary because it's a basic arpeggio following the scale of E minor. But I'd say to make it sound realistic and cool, because that is the purpose of any songwriter, then it's no use trying to go up there and trying to play super high notes, okay? Because that won't be realistic. Why? Because the guitarist can't switch from this position to super high position on the fretboard, on the guitar fretboard. So what I always do when I try to make songs is that I'm building a pattern. Here is the pattern of the arpeggio, and then I'm going to modify the position of one note, which is in that case an A2, I'm going from a B2 to an A2, and I'm creating a melody because that is on the scale of E minor, and it creates an E suspended 4, all right, with these 4 notes. So it sounds like this. So how to make your Ample Guitar VST sound more realistic. Tip number 4 is if we can't play notes that are too distant on the guitar fretboard, then the best way to make it sound real is to keep it simple. So if I play the song that we just started to program in MIDI a few minutes ago, but if I play it now with a real guitar, it goes like this. And it's actually super simple. What I'm doing is that I'm playing an E minor, then I add one finger, the little one, and I play an E suspended 4. E suspended 4, E minor. Then if we switch chords, I'm going to say a D major, and I repeat on the arpeggio, and I remove one finger, and I'm playing a D suspended 2. So E minor, E suspended 4, D major, D suspended 2. And it's super simple, but I'm creating a melody. So if we program that, what I just played, on an Ample Guitar VST, then it has no chances not to sound realistic. Okay, last tip on how to make your Ample Guitar VST sound more realistic is choose the right sample library. And I'm putting an emphasis right here because it's a very common mistake, especially for new players or beginners, and that has a huge impact on the way it sounds. So let me explain how it works. First, we have the finger library, which is made to emulate finger picking, strumming, or arpeggios. And how did they record that sample library? Well, they just used their fingertips. Secondly, we have the strum library, which is made to emulate strumming. That is to say, a song that is played with a pick, but a tiny one. Ample Sound says that it recorded the strum library of the Martin and the Taylor guitars with a 0.71 pick, which is a tiny one. Up next, we have a pick library. That collection of samples is better used for solos and arpeggios. It is also recorded with a pick, but this time the pick is a bit thicker. So let's compare. Let's try to play the sound we wrote in MIDI a few minutes ago, which was, by the way, recorded with the pick library. But this time we'll try it out with the strum library. So it sounds wrong. Why? Because the strum library produces a strum noise. A strum noise is the sounds that the pick generates when it hits on the strings. And well, when we play an arpeggio, we do not want that sound to be applied. Why? Because an arpeggio is kind of a sweet way of playing, of plucking the strings. However, we could play the song with the finger library. So let's hear the difference. Alright, so that would be the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed the tutorial. Please give it a like if you did, and let me know in the comments if you see other tips we could share with the community of Ample Sound players. And if you want more resources on how to play with Ample Sound instruments, well, you could check out that video, which will give you some tips and tricks on how to write a riff in a riffer. And that video, well, will provide you with some guidance on how to write a song that sounds like Wonderwall by Oasis. And well, either way, you can subscribe to the channel because more content is on the way.